Turning now to the Trump org case, we've covered it a lot. It is a huge deal, and we have a special grand jury that will resume poring over evidence this week. They could ultimately face a decision that is unlike anything we've ever seen in American history. And it's important regardless of what you think about this or that political situation. It's a question of, if the evidence supports it, whether to potentially indict the company of or the person of a former president. Now, we have a special guest tonight on this and so much more. This is a candidate from the consequential race to replace the DA you've heard about, Cy Vance in Manhattan, who's currently leading the Trump org criminal probe. Voters will choose among the candidates in just 8 days. Voting already underway.
Manhattan DA Cy Vance,
whose office is investigating former President Trump.
Cyrus Vance.
He will not run for re-election.
8 candidates are vying for the district attorney seat.
Tally for Hayden Weinstein and Alvin Bragg.
I'm the candidate in the race who has the experience with Donald Trump.
I'm Eliza Orlins. I'm the only public defender in this race.
Lucy Lang, formerly an assistant DA in Vance's office.
A Vance exit would mean a new Manhattan DA in the spotlight.
Manhattan DA candidate Lucy Lang, you just heard about there, joins us now. She spent much of her career working in this office that she could now potentially, if she won, be the head of. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Ari.
Absolutely. A lot of important issues. We'll get to some of them I mentioned, but let me ask you about the office where you have worked, because you look at something that's been debated, especially in the context of racism in the law and harsh sentencing. This is an office where about a fifth of New York's prison population is serving a life sentence. It's one of the highest rates in the country. And I'm curious what you think about that. Obviously, you've had many different types of cases, but do you think the office has historically gotten that right? Would you change that?
I've run a national criminal justice reform organization, and I've served as an assistant district attorney right here in Manhattan, handling the most serious, complex, and violent cases. There is no doubt that the Manhattan District Attorney's Office and other New York City DA's offices have been part of fueling mass incarceration, and that part of that has been seeking unduly long sentences. So the commitment to dismantling mass incarceration and reckoning with the country's history of racial injustice has to include addressing excessive sentencing.
Yeah, appreciate that. And you're sort of speaking about the two roles you've had. On the Trump org case, we've seen from public reports that there is this special grand jury and panel. That means whoever wins this race, if it were you, could inherit either an open case or potentially indictments. Do you think that based on the public evidence, this grand jury is legally justified?
I have the most experience in the race handling large-scale, complex investigations. As you know, can't comment on the specifics of that case, but I do have the capacity to take over all of the cases pending before that office from the very first day as district attorney. I know the ins and outs of New York criminal law and criminal procedure law, and I'm prepared to make sure that based on my experience overseeing large-scale investigations, there's continuity of personnel in all of the cases that are pending before the office.
You say continuity. Does that mean that you would basically intend to carry out the pending cases, or you might look at them anew or drop some of them?
I would expect to follow the evidence wherever the evidence may lead and ensure that people are held appropriately accountable regardless of how powerful or well-connected they may be.
When you look at the situation there, do you think legally this office, the Manhattan DA, has the authority to indict an ex-president?
I do.
When you look at Donald Trump and the Trump organization, do you see the outlines of a case here? I mean, is this something where we've talked about this with other people on the program, so viewers may be familiar. The current attorney general, as a candidate, was pretty clear in telling voters that she saw a problem with Donald Trump without prejudging cases. That's kind of the whole reason that there's a race in the first place, that voters get some sense of where you're headed. What do you view as the potential legal exposure of Donald Trump? Is that something you're able to stand up to, or should voters see you as a blank slate there?
Ari, I think that one of the worst things the next district attorney could do would be to say something on the campaign trail that would suggest anything other than complete impartiality when it comes to investigating all the cases in front of the office and putting themselves in a position where they might face a recusal motion or removal of jurisdiction. So I have been very committed to making sure that it is clear that I have the experience to take over that case and all the other pending cases. And I'll tell you that the senior most advisor to my campaign was the former assistant district attorney who handled the first investigation into the Trump organization. I know what he went through when that case was shut down, and I believe that that case should not have been shut down.
And that was under the current DA. You're talking about the Cy Vance Trump Soho probe?
Yes.
And why shouldn't it, in your view, have been shut down?
Don't think it's appropriate to speak to the evidence. I'm speaking really to the fact that that case, like others, involved backroom meetings between senior staff at the district attorney's office and well-heeled defense lawyers, and decisions were made that resulted in those cases being concluded. And I believe that my policy of ensuring equal access for all defense attorneys and no more backroom meetings gets at precisely what has gone wrong in some of the cases for which the office has borne critique in recent years.
Very interesting, you giving us your perspective, particularly with your background, your history, and your ability to speak about past cases, which may or may not be prologue, but all very interesting. Lucy Lang, thanks for being here.